right, guys, what's up? Joey McKernan here with the What It Takes podcast. And man, I am so glad to be here with Corwin. I'm pumped about just talking about business. And Corwin was just talking about, like, we love to talk about Jesus. We love to talk about business. We're talking business here. And we named this podcast What It Takes because we really want to learn insights and lessons about what it takes to be successful in business. Like, you see a lot of stuff online. Yeah. Just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff online about entrepreneurship, about business. I wanted to interview and create content to share what it takes to really win in business on a real life scale and just learn lessons. So Corwin Keller from Ideal Heating and Air Conditioning. Corwin, how are you doing, man?
Great. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Yeah, man. I'll have you eat that mic a little bit. We'll roll in. There you go. Man, so let's start a little bit, obviously, in business. How long have you been in business for?
So I've had a company of some sort for almost 20 years.
Okay.
I've been in some form of leadership.
And you started this entrepreneurship journey. How old were you?
28.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you just got in. And so tell us a little bit about that story. Tell us that.
Jumping in feet first.
Tell us that story real quick. Like, you get into this. Just tell me about that experience, some of the lessons you learned quickly.
Yeah,
when you were 28.
The first thing that we thought we were so clever at is we started with no money and no business plan.
All right, there you go.
That was a big mistake.
Okay.
Yeah, we should have prepared a little bit more.
Sure.
But we dove right in. I had a couple partners at the time that were in the business. The partnership was tough because of just lack of communication. But you know, it grew really fast because we were just willing to get out there and get after it.
Yeah.
And I was raised by two parents that were entrepreneurs.
Oh, really?
And so I had the drive.
Yeah.
I knew that and the work ethic. So I knew that just get out there and work hard. Things are going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty much how we did. We dove right in. So.
You went in with how many partners initially?
So I had two partners initially.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so there's three of you.
There was three of us.
Okay.
So what I'm learning now as I'm studying communication more.
Yeah.
3 guys in the mix is like a 500% increase of like of communication. I mean, it's just crazy how much more communication you need when you have multiple partners, and really just clear defined roles of what everybody is doing, because that was our biggest struggle was, hey, what are you doing right now? Like, I don't think you're doing anything. So it would cause some issues, you know? So.
Well, tell me a little bit about this. Okay. Do you have partners now?
So no, currently no. So I started Ideal with 2 investors who were silent partners, but I took a different route with Ideal Heating and Air versus my first company. And it was more to just making sure that I knew the people I was getting in business with, and making sure that we were equally yoked, just having the Christian background and guys that didn't want to meddle in the business, just wanted to invest. Yeah. And, you know, get me off on a financial standpoint.
This actually isn't a part of the questions we had prepared, but I want to talk a little bit, which, I mean, that's just how it goes. But I hear so many partner issues, and like, people get in business together, you know, 50-50 partners, 33, like thirds. And similar to what you were sharing, like, struggle in communication, struggle with like clarity. You know, you hear a lot of stories that go south. And what would you tell an entrepreneur that's getting in a partnership with somebody, or, you know, with a group of people?
Yeah, everything in writing is so important.
Okay.
Clear definition on roles, responsibilities, rights, like who's going to be the tiebreaker. So we were all equal shareholders in the first company, and it was tough because when we got into a disagreement, there was no tiebreaker. So you need somebody who has the final say, and that has to be decided before you really launch your venture. Because it's so important. I mean, and having everybody in agreement up front with that is just, it helps just eliminate any strife or any, you know, issues down the road when things come up.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, it's like someone has to lead.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Somebody's got to make the decision.
Someone's got to make a decision. And when it's all even, we never took partners in our business, but I knew a lot of people that did. And I just heard a lot of, it almost scared me in some ways, because I heard a lot of of horror stories.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing that goes along with that is when you have somebody who's making the decision, then they own the responsibility. Their authority becomes responsibility over those decisions. And so if something doesn't go well, and they were the decision maker at the time, or the tiebreaker, then now they're responsible.
Yeah.
And so I think that also helps, because when everybody's 50-50 and nobody's really making a clear decision, but you move forward with action anyways, and then it doesn't go well, now all of a sudden everybody's just blaming everybody else.
Right.
So, yeah, that's a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Responsibility.
It's so common of kind of the partner, because it's like you have equity share in this business, and yet it doesn't structure well,
right,
like from a decision-making standpoint, like who's making the decision, like.
Right.
And so that's really good. Tell us some more about Ideal, and like, when did you start that business? What did that look like?
So when I started, I started Ideal in March of 2013.
Okay.
And really, when I started it, it was because of these two men that were like, they saw me working for another company after my other business venture went the direction I didn't want it to go. It wasn't a failure. I always, I tend to use my, words have power, right?
Yeah.
And so I used to say it was a failure, but it wasn't, because I didn't give up. But they wanted to see, they basically saw what I had and the spirit that I had, and they wanted to see me get back on my feet. And so they helped me get everything going after I wrote a business plan, and after I had wrote, a monetary amount that I was requesting to start everything up. So I started that, but I still lived in a lot of fear of the failures that I had ran across in the first business. And so I was very conservative the first 5 years. It really stifled my growth. I was, afraid to hire.
Yeah. What kind of fears?
Well, so I was afraid to hire people because of just the challenges of having employees. I was afraid to grow, to go out and get more sales. We had a lot of troubles with the first business with contractors not paying their bills. And, and so I was like, well, if I just stay away from that market, then I'll be okay. I'll avoid all that stuff. And it was literally just living in avoidance of things that I needed to, because we live in Omaha, and we have 4 seasons here, and in heating and air conditioning, spring and fall are really not good for business.
Yeah.
So construction and remodel is almost necessary. And so I needed it. It really took getting myself surrounded by a solid group of guys who could pour into my life and show me those blind spots of what or where my fear lied. So that I could get out of that and say, okay, I do need to make some changes. I do need to take some risks, and not be afraid to fail again. Yeah, because I can learn from that. Yeah, and so that was kind of where I was at with that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and I mean, are you really an entrepreneur if you haven't had a venture go south a little bit?
I think everybody's had something go wrong.
I mean, we've had a lot of passion projects start, trying to get things going, and I totally resonate with it. But one of the things you talked about, and one of your passions, is surrounding yourself with the right people. Yeah. And it sounds like these investors were more of just a circle for you of support that became investors. It sounds like. Yeah. Tell us more, because I hear this, like, especially with entrepreneurs, I think a lot of them are solo runners. That's kind of why they get into it. Like they want to create their own thing or innovate or disrupt, But tell me more about like how a circle has helped you break through some of your fears, some of your challenges as a business owner.
So with the first business, we basically ran the business like the world tells you to run it. Go chase after everything that's shiny, burn every bridge that's behind you, and just keep going and make this thing as big as possible. And so I learned really quick that when you just chase the money, it'll fall apart really quickly, right? Because you're just leaving a wake of disaster in your past. And so I started to get myself surrounded by other businessmen who were, first of all, they had faith in Christ. And they were running their business that way. And I really saw a lot of benefit in that, because there's a lot of scripture that talks about how to run your business wisely. I mean, the Bible talks about money in a lot of different ways. Yeah. And everybody's just like, oh, it's a book of rules. It's like, well, they're rules that really help us. Yeah. But I knew that if I got if I went back to that guy that I was before that, living the way of the world or running my business the way of the world, that I was going to inevitably fall flat on my face again. And so I had linked up with some guys through a Bible study that introduced me to CBMC, which is Christian Business Men's Connection. And they have forum groups that are designed for business owners and senior level executives to get together and help each other with their businesses in a biblical format. So, I mean, that was necessary because at this point, when I looked at it, was just a sole entrepreneur by myself in the business, because the investors, they didn't want to tell me how to run the business. They weren't going to show up every day and say, well, this is how I need you to do it. They just wanted to see profits. And they wanted to see me be successful without telling me how to be successful. I knew that I needed to be held accountable for what I was doing. And the only way to be accountable was to have guys that were also running their own businesses that either had gone before me or were in the same, stage of life or in business, and just keep plugging into that. So I meet with a group of guys. I'm actually facilitating a group now, but I meet with them once a month. Okay. And I just met with the other group who I had started with, and oh man, it's good to see these guys still running solid businesses and to see their success. It's awesome.
Tell me more. Like, a lot of entrepreneurs, I feel like, don't look for, you said something, accountability, or you said the word accountability, which I think
it's a dirty word.
think in some ways, like, I've met a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, like, that's one of the reasons they started their own thing, was because they were in a corporate structure or something, and accountability was, they felt like, and maybe it's the wrong word. Maybe those words are too close, but like, they felt, what am I trying to say? Like, what am I trying to say? They feel squished. They felt micromanaged. They felt like they couldn't be the leader they were supposed to be, So how do you as an entrepreneur balance like that innovative, creative, just, going, but also having a group of people holding you accountable to things, and why is that so valuable for being a founder?
I think for me, when it comes to that balance of accountability versus I'm being watched or managed or policed. I can't find a good word for that either.
I know. Like, what's the word?
Because
suffocating.
I mean, that's suffocating. That's one way to put it.
That's what they feel.
Right.
That's what they feel. That's what I maybe have felt.
Yeah, I think, the benefit for me has been really so that I have just somebody else there helping me monitor my goals and my progress, because I think it really goes back to like coaching as well. Like all the great athletes had amazing coaches to help spur them to that next level. And I think that's what really accountability is about. It's that relationship that you have in your life where somebody can speak truth into your life and find your blind spots and pull them out so that you can see them and that you can get better from that. And I think if a person is not willing to accept that accountability, it's going to be a struggle. It really is. I mean, you may have some success in the world's eyes, but I think long-term success won't come unless you have more of those types of relationships in your life. I mean, because we can't do it alone.
No.
I mean, there's just no way.
No.
And I think every person that's been successful in this world, even the big guys that we look at, they've always had somebody else in their life that has helped get them to that next level, whether it's a wife or just a significant other, or just a best friend, or just a business coach in general. So I mean, I really believe a lot in business coaching and having mentors and that stuff. It's huge.
That's so good. I have a strategic coach, life coach, that I meet with, and just a few weeks ago, it's like I made a decision. And I was like, I should have stopped and thought about that. Like, I should have called. And I'm getting better at, like, what you're saying, though. And as people are listening, entrepreneurs, leaders, business leaders, it's like we don't know everything, number one. And I think it was like, I made a decision out of emotion. And if I would have called them and just talked it through with them, I don't think I would have made that decision. And it cost me something, and it's a whole thing. But like, I was like, my gosh, what am I doing? But I totally agree with you. And I think there are people that's like, oh, you just do, it's like, no, we need people in our corner.
Yeah.
We need people that will like, hey, you need to slow down for a second, take a breath, go to bed, think about it.
Yeah.
And you just need those people.
Yeah.
You just need those people. Have you ever done that before? Make a mistake by yourself. Like,
I'm still doing it.
Like, what did I do? I was like, gosh.
I'm a man of action.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And I'm also, I love to promote ideas. Like that's what brings me energy. And sometimes I don't stop, especially when I'm around my employees, to filter those thoughts before I say them. And so then when you get in that place of authority in your business as the entrepreneur, when things come out of your mouth, people think that that's like law. That needs to be done. Yes. Yeah, that's law. And so I have to remember that. I need to stop when I have a thought because I love to invent things, right? Yeah. But I don't ever want to put them into practice. Like I need people around me that like to put it into practice. Take my ideas, filter them, put them into practice. So I have to remember that to pause and then say, okay, when I'm saying this out loud, is this to the right crowd? Is this to my leadership team who knows me really well and they're just like, oh, there's another one of Corwin's crazy ideas coming out? Or is this to an employee that's like, do I need to start doing that now?
Yeah. I'll get on it right now. I worked.
Like, what am I doing here?
I worked all night on this. Like, oh, I didn't mean for that to roll into this. No, that's so good. We need a circle. And obviously the CBMC groups, but just even having mentors, right?
Yeah,
and
coaches.
Do you have, do you just have individual mentors or do you mainly find your support through the CBMC group or like where do you find all your circles?
So it's been a combination really of all three. So my investors I was speaking about, they were business mentors in the beginning.
Okay.
One has since passed away, and he owned a steel business, very successful man. And to sit with him for an hour was amazing.
Yeah,
I mean, it really was just the wisdom that he had, and his stuff was just so basic, and that's what was awesome about it. It was everything was so simple, and I think that's another thing that we in business we try to make everything complicated. We think we're so smart, we're business leaders, and it's like no, we need to keep it simple. Simple is best.
Yeah.
The other thing that I did was I went to some industry specific coaching. And that was something I found in my first business. And we were using a coach for the last couple of years before I got bought out, which was really helpful because then they knew our industry inside and out.
Sure.
And they were also working with other business owners in the same industry throughout the nation. And so it was a good resource to help get answers quickly so that I wasn't having to reinvent the wheel because I really feel like no matter what industry you're in, you're really not starting anything new.
Yeah.
I think it's really good to start from a base.
What?
It's like, everything's, nothing's new under the sun.
Yeah.
I was gonna quote that wrong. But yeah, it's just so good to just cut that out. But also I learned really quickly too, that with some of that, it is area specific. So like a guy in Michigan doing HVAC, his business might work really well off of a specific way, but it may not relate to our economy here in Omaha, even though we're in the U.S.
Yeah, right.
But the economies can be a little bit different.
Yeah.
Buyers purchase differently here in Omaha than they do in other areas. I mean,
that's a good point.
You probably know that. I mean, people in L.A. are going to spend money differently than they do here in Omaha. So, I mean, it's having that wisdom too, but that resource of industry specific really helped me as well as the CBMC stuff. The CBMC stuff is nationwide as well. And so, I mean, they're in all the major cities doing stuff. And I always say we're the best kept secret because we don't talk about it enough. But it's, like I think you were alluding to, the entrepreneurial part of our businesses, it's lonely at the top, right? And so guys, it's also prideful. Like we don't want to humble ourselves to say we need help. And so it's, that's what we're with the CBMC stuff. We're really trying to get out there to show guys that, hey, there's avenues to not only get help for yourself but if you want to be help for somebody else, there's outlets that you can help other guys with their businesses. Maybe if you're an entrepreneur that's been doing it for 30 years and you want to give back that way, that's been good as well. Having, being a mentor So
absolutely.
Yeah. There's a lot of avenues though for coaches.
Yeah.
It's kind of,
there's a ton.
yeah.
It's which ones do you like and trust?
Wisely.
Yeah. Who do you trust?
Right.
Some of the best mentors of it. Yeah. They're just successful. Like your steel investor, like, and it never was like a consulting type of gig. It was just a guy that I knew. And, you wanted to also talk a little bit about doing business by the book, which I think is a great, there's just a lot of baloney out there too. Right. I just want to put that out there in business, like people not doing things to maybe to a certain standard. And, you just hear a lot of stuff. You see a lot of stuff. You've done business with some people where you're like, man, how do you treat someone like that and still get business? Like sometimes you wonder like how this even happens, but why is that a point of passion for you?
Well, it's because it works. It's worked in my own life. So I've ran two different businesses, or I ran two different businesses, two completely different ways. And, the first one, I was a professed Christian, but I never practiced it.
Sure.
Like the way we ran business, the way we ran our lives was it was ugly.
Yeah.
And so knowing that and seeing the mistakes that I made because of that, I knew I needed to do it differently. And even during that time, I always was seeking the world's advice on how to run my business. And so I'm, reaching out. If you wrote a book, I'm going to go read it. I read 1,000 books. Like I love to read.
Yeah.
And I started to realize, I'm just confused with all the noise that's going on out there. So I took a 2-year break from reading any business books, and I just read the Bible, cover to cover, 2 years straight.
Wow.
And it changed my business. My business grew more in those 2 years than it ever had. And I had just more peace and more clarity than I ever had. And a lot of it was, I think, just understanding that I'm not in control, right? There's a lot of things that have to happen for people to come do business with me.
Yeah.
And so, I can't control 99% of it, right?
Yeah.
Like I can show up every day and that's what I can control. The other thing I can control is the fact that the way I treat my customers when things go wrong and the way I treat my employees when things go wrong, that's a huge thing that I've learned from Scripture is, Jesus always told us that you want to treat others as you want to be treated. And it's so hard when you're in that moment where that employee just lost you thousands of dollars because of a mistake, or this customer's really upset because their expectations weren't met, but they didn't really share their expectations with you at the beginning of the job.
Been there. Yeah.
And so, I've always looked at it as, okay, what am I going to gain from this by either going back and making them look bad because I knew that they were in the wrong, or am I just going to be humble, be silent, fix the problem, come up with a solution to the problem, and then just move on.
Yeah.
And so I've always found it more beneficial to just solve the problems quietly.
Yeah.
And just take care of the issues however they may be and however much they may cost. And it just keeps returning, right? I think some people call it karma.
Yeah. Sure.
And or reaping what you sow, but I'm really a firm believer that that's what Jesus was trying to teach us all along. Surround yourself with good people, and then treat others as you want to be treated, and it works really well.
Do you know the worst phrase? The phrase I hate when people say is, "Oh, it's just business," which is an excuse to treat people like crap,
right? Which is
like, but you hear it. Like, I've known people, Christian, some non-Christians, like they're great people, and then like we get into business, or like I heard about a business trend, and I'm like, my jaw just like drops. Like from a character standpoint, it's like, where did it go? It just like went out the window. Right. And then we'll say, well, it's just business. And it's like, I don't think that's what Jesus called us to do. Like just to throw out all of our values because we're in business. And then we'll go back to our values when we go to church with my family and sit next to my daughter. And it's like, no, I think we're supposed to do that in the boardroom too with our clients. And like, I think that's
most of Jesus' ministry was in the marketplace.
Right.
So I mean, it's so important. But as men, we love to compartmentalize.
Sure.
And I was very guilty of it.
Yeah.
So it's that's why I need those men around me, because I could do it again really easily.
It's easy to say that. I mean, I've seen it. Well, my dad was in the construction business, and like I was around that space and like super intense, and it's just like, how do we be who we've been called to be throughout all sectors of our life, especially in the marketplace.
Yeah, and the one thing I'm trying to teach my young guys, because we're really big on hiring guys that either didn't like school or just want to work with their hands, and so
our type of people.
Train them up. Yeah, I mean, I love it. That's just a way to give back to the next generation as well. But just telling these guys that, just I lost my train of thought.
No, you're good.
But I don't know where I was.
We were talking about character and like.
Oh, right. Yeah. So just the way that we come off with a lot of that stuff is just to be somebody that you think you want to be, but live it out every day.
Yeah.
And so I don't even know if that's where I was going with that.
No, you're good. I think also like above book stuff is it's the small stuff.
Yeah. That's
for me, like, we owe this person back like $40 or something.
Right.
Like we had some issue with booking or something. Like give them the $40 back. Like it's just simple stuff like that. Like, and I think it's the small things like that where, it's just the character, especially when I think again, money has a way, I think in a lot of ways to make people do interesting things, and our relationship with money can pull us into some maybe negative places if we're not careful, like if we're not centered, like you're talking about, and make us do things that we're going to regret.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember where I was going.
Okay.
So it was what you're doing when nobody's looking is true character.
Yes.
And so, because we do a lot of work where, especially in construction, where nobody's there.
Yeah.
And nobody may even see it before the drywall goes up.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is God is always watching.
Yeah.
There's always somebody watching.
Yeah.
And so, I really try to teach that to the guys that's how we build character is. And just like you said, if there's a small thing like owing somebody a credit and we just pay back, even if it's $40 or if it's $20, you just pay it back.
Just do it.
Or if you made a promise, just follow through.
Yeah.
That's such a huge deal that could easily get swept under the rug and somebody will forget about it. But yet it's really about, that integrity and character and
my dad used to say growing up, he's like, you finish the job even if you lost money on it.
Yeah, that's
like,
good.
And it was hard. It's like, it's like, but that character instilled in us is so important. Yeah. And like you said, when no one's watching,
right?
That's really who you are.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to share? Anything you want to wrap up here?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's been good. I've appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you for being on the show. I know it's quick, but I mean, great lessons. I think entrepreneurs, business owners, executives, as you're listening out there, number one, find your circle. I know CBMC, Christian Businessmen.
Connection.
Thank you. I was like, what's the last C? Great place, great community. There's just so many networks out there, especially if you're in Omaha local. Yeah, I mean, there's so many great business owners, business leaders, executives. Just ask. I used to ask people all the time, like, hey, can we just sit down? I'll pick your brain. They're like, sure. That people love to help the next generation. That's what I know. And so, Corwin, thank you so much for being on the show, man. And what it takes, we will be back here with another guest. Our next guest is Don Eccles, founder of Scooter's Coffee. So excited for where this is going. Thanks, guys. Next time.